Well, we'll get started here today. Welcome, everyone, to the ANA Candidates Forum. I am your moderator, Barbara Gregory. We greatly appreciate the participation of 11 of the candidates in the 2019 Board of Governors race. Running for elective office are the following individuals, listed alphabetically. For ANA President, Colonel Stephen Ellsworth and Dr. Donald H. Kagan. For ANA Vice President, Dr. Ralph W. Ross and Thomas J. Uram. For ANA Governor, Rick Ewing, Mary Lynn Garrett, John Highfill, Greg Lyon, Clifford Mishler, Paul Montgomery, and Robert E. Oberth. Also receiving nominations for ANA Governor but unable to attend this candidate forum are Michael Ellis, Muriel Emery, and Shanna Schmidt. We will begin today's forum with a 1-minute opening statement from each candidate. And then questions will be selected at random and posed individually, one to each candidate. At the end of each candidate's 1-minute response, other candidates have the option of offering a 30-second comment by raising their hands and being recognized by your moderator, and that would be me. At the end of the forum, we will open the floor to audience questions. So any questions from the participants here? Great, then let's get started. I will draw the first question, which will be directed to Steve Ellsworth. And Steve, you will have 1 minute to offer your response. And we'll get started. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. That was the part I just missed here. So we will begin with an opening 1-minute statement from each candidate. And so we will begin with Steve Ellsworth, followed by Don Kagan. Steve.
Do I use this mic here?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Well, I'm Steve Ellsworth, and I've served on the board now for just about 4 years. And during that time, I've learned a great deal about the ANA and its functioning, and also some thoughts and ideas on how we should progress for the future. I can honestly tell you that I've given it about 110% over the last 2 terms of my commitment, and I've done all I can as far as time, talent, and treasure in my help with the ANA. And if I'm elected president, I will work on the strategic plan to further our long-term goals and to make us a more viable entity within the coin collecting community. I can just tell you that I'm basically a collector that supports his habit through dealing coins part-time and sometimes full-time. But since I've been with the ANA, it's about a 15 to 20 hour commitment that I've been putting in. And so I want to continue that same service if you're kind enough to put me in as president. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next is Don Kagan. Don? No, right here, right here. Uh-huh.
Okay. As vice president of this association for the last 1.5 years, and for an additional 6 years on the board of governors, I've been able to see just about every kind of policy and participate in this association. I've been able to bring my over 60 years of passionate collecting, as well as a half a century as a coin dealer and businessman, to bear on these decisions, and I can do that as president going forward. I believe ANA is in an excellent position to move forward with it and expand its educational mission and to increase interest in our association. But it will take additional innovation. It'll take leadership to make bold decisions, to implement new ideas that'll get us to the next level of excitement and engagement in our community and hobby. And I'm prepared to do that.
Thank you, Don. Next, we have Dr. Ralph Ross. Ralph?
Good afternoon. I'm happy to sit here amongst you and bring to your attention that I'd like to run for the Vice President of the American Numismatic Association. Everybody knows it's the world's largest organization of coins, tokens, and paper money collectors. I'm a grassroots collector. I started around the age of 4 years old with my numismatic talent and my ability with excitement and scintillation and ability to try to learn as much as I can as a little kid. Now, over 63 years later, I want to get involved in much more extensive and deeper level. I like to pursue the position of vice president. I'm a career educator. I want to push numismatic education to get more young people involved, bring numismatic exhibits back again to the floor in the Bourse area, get young people involved. I think it's imperative that we do our best to get education and bring it to the young people at all costs and at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Next, we have Tom Uram. Tom?
Thank you, Barbara, and thanks everyone for coming this afternoon. In 1974, about 4 blocks from here, I met my uncle, who was a trust officer at Pittsburgh National Bank at the time. He handed me a red book, and he handed me my application for A&A membership. I've been a member of the A&A since 1974. I'm seeking the office of Vice President for a number of reasons. Number one, I love the organization, been part of the organization, and I think through my other leadership skills, I can bring to the table some qualities that will help build on the endeavors. My slogan, if you want to call it that, well, don't call it that, it is that, love of the past and looking to the future. We all remember what the past is. We've all had the past. Many of us have been part of that past. Now we look to the future and we learn from that past and build on it to make this a stronger and better organization. We don't have to be the biggest, we just have to be better. And that's why I'm running for Vice President. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we have Rick Ewing. Rick?
I'd like to thank you all for coming and seeing us. I'm a candidate for the governor. This is my first time around to be a candidate for the governor. I've talked to a lot of these people that are around here, and they said that my ideas seem to be worthwhile and worthy. I should bring them forth and bring them to the forefront. My primary goals is I would like to see a little more involvement of the clubs and the clubs to get more members of the into the A&A. Because if you look at some of the clubs that are listed on the A&A directory site, they don't list a single member as being a member. They're just a club member. And so they don't have much participation. And I would like to see more of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And I'd like to encourage all the participants, when you address a question, to go ahead and grab the mic and pull it over to you so that you can speak into the mic and everyone can hear you. Next up, we've got Mary Lynn Garrett. Mary Lynn?
Hello, how are you doing? Thank you. I'm actually doing this for the ANA because applying for it and everything is because I've been the operations manager for a company for about 25 years, and I have felt that I've learned an awful lot through the company about numismatics. I came from the medical field, and I've been on quite a few nonprofits locally for the last 25 years as well. And financially, I've gotten to see the ups and downs of the coin market for about 25 years as well. And I've gotten to meet a lot of the ANA staff with coming to the summer seminar, and I've gotten the opportunity to see how it works and what goes on with the summer seminar and how educational it is for all the students and women and the minorities and the men that come to it. I have just really enjoyed it a lot. And I'm hoping that I can bring a different perspective to the board, and if there's anything that I can help along with it, that's what I'm here for, is to help the ANA.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Next, we have John Highfield. John?
Yes, my name is John Highfield. I don't know if any of you know me or not, or all of you know me or not, but I've been around for about 42 years. I founded a couple of things. One of them was the National Civil Law Roundtable, which is a nonprofit organization. It's been 38 years, so I've been in nonprofit for that amount of time. I'm a current board member seeking re-election. Also, I'm on the ITCA Board of Governors for the last 36 years. So I'm pretty well aware of what things have to be done in nonprofit. There are things that need to be changed in A&A, and at the time of the economy right now, it's just about time for everybody to get together and get some things going. We're working, hopefully it's not private, obviously, but we're looking at working on a state-of-the-art website that might really help the organization and communication and everything else like that. So anyway, I'd like to have you vote. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Greg Lyon. Greg.
Hello, my name is Greg Lyon, and I'm seeking re-election to the ANA Board of Governors. We are thankfully in a very strong financial state for the ANA. We are doing very well in that area, but the hobby, as we all know it, is facing a number of challenges. As society has changed over, since I was a YN even, people are less likely to go to coin shows, less likely to be involved in coin clubs, more likely to be involved in online activities. And I think that's the area that the ANA needs to move forward in. We've begun the process of building an e-learning system. And really, I feel that educating not only our membership, but the general public needs to be one of our major goals in the upcoming few years. So I would appreciate your support and look forward to continue serving the ANA and its members.
Thank you, Greg. Next is Clifford Mishler. Cliff.
Thank you, Barb. It's my pleasure to be here. I've been around the hobby for a few years, coming up on 69, and I've been an ANA member for over 62 years. So I'm probably the most senior person up here at this table, I think. But anyway, I don't have any great objectives where the ANA is concerned. I just want to see it continue to prosper and become better. Just like to read, and if any of you are interested, I do have a statement up here I'd be glad to share with you after the session, but I would like to just quote briefly from it. To survive and prosper in the world that is unfolding before us, our hobby and the American Numismatic Association must craft and monitor a pathway forward that is both stable and productive. My sole objective and commitment in seeking to serve on the ANA board for the next 2 years is to help carve what will hopefully be the best, most positive, and productive pathway to the future. And with that, I will turn it over to the next panelist.
Thank you very much, Cliff. Paul Montgomery.
Thank you. You know, I was pretty impressed when I was thinking this morning how long I've been a collector, and I thought, wow, 52 years. And unfortunately, I think that makes me one of the youngsters in the room. I have been honored to serve as a board member for the last 3.5 years, for the last 2 terms. I have served on numerous boards within the numismatic hobby, including ICTA, and I served for 14 years on the P&G board and was president of the P&G. I also serve on nonprofit boards at home, whether they're private schools. I have only got 30 seconds, but I have been a professional for 35 years, and then recently in the last 2 years I've semi-retired, and now I'm a pastor at a Baptist church. I understand the challenges of nonprofits. I understand the challenges of member-based associations. And over the last 4 years, I've gotten a very close-up look of the association. I am known as an instrument of change, and that's what I hope I can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Last up for opening statements is Robert Oberth. Robert?
Hello. I'm Rob Oberth. I founded Roundtable Trading, which is a social media network. It's kind of a new, fresh take on coin dealer associations. So under Roundtable is Coin Dealers Helping Coin Dealers, which is our wholesale network, and then we have a couple of collector networks that have thousands of members. I get to hear a lot of ideas from a lot of people, and we have direct access to communicate with them, so I think I can bring our message, the ANA's message, directly to them. I could bring their ideas to us. What I'd like to work on is mass communication, increasing summer seminar attendance, coin show attendance, and increasing our membership ranks of the ANA in general.
Thank you, Rob. And now we're going to get to our questions. So once again, these questions will be selected at random and posed individually, one to each candidate. And at the end of each candidate's 1-minute response, other candidates have the option of offering a 30-second comment by raising their hands and being recognized by the moderator. So, any questions? Again, and we'll get started. And I will choose the first question, which will be directed to Steve Ellsworth. Steve, you have 1 minute to offer your response. So, Steve, should the ANA continue to exist as a membership organization, or should it provide numismatic education to the public at large? With a declining collector base and young people's reluctance to join organizations, what new approaches should the ANA explore?
Well, the educational mandate that everybody speaks of, I've studied it, and I've gone through all the necessary paperwork to get some ideas on some directions we can do. One of the things is our mandate does not say for members only, so we need to expand it and cast our net a little wider. And hopefully with that, if we're doing a good job, then we'll attract more membership. But retention of our members is also very, very critical. We got to give them the services and so forth and be of value, and we need to be a force within this particular hobby. So for me, I think that the net has to be cast wider. We have to give our membership the services that they want and do it in the most economical and business form that we and operation that we can come up with.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Would anyone else like to respond to that question, or would you like me to reread that question? Okay, moving on then. Our next question is for Don Kagan. Don, what critical skills would you bring to the board if you were elected? Also, if you are a current board member, which you are, name one area on which you have focused and achieved a measure of success.
Well, as I stated in my first minute, thank you, I've been on the board for almost 8 years now, and I bring that experience in handling so many different aspects of numismatics. I've also been on 7 other nonprofit boards, including the San Francisco Historical Society, ICTA. I'm a co-founder of ICTA from 38 years ago. I've also been on the board of the Silver Dollar Roundtable for a few years. I've been on the board of and co-founder of the Society of Private and Pioneer Gold. So I bring a lot of numismatic background, a lot of business background. I've been in business and nonprofit background, and I've been in business for, as I said, over a half century in numismatics. So I've also been involved in getting a coin commemorative program passed through Congress. In 2005, that was my idea to get a coin commemorative coin passed through Congress. We raised $4.5 million for the old San Francisco Mint. So I have fundraising and educational background with a BA and PhD in numismatics.
Thank you, Don. Do we have any other current board members who would like to respond to that question? Do we have any prospective, right down here? As a prospective member, Mary Lynn, if you would name one area on which you plan to focus and one project you would work on, you would work to complete in that area.
Barbara, I was going to try to respond to the other question that you had.
You certainly, you can, that was for a current board member, and certainly if you would like to address areas that you focused on in the past and have achieved some measure of success, you may do so as well.
Well, I was going to just go through the critical skills that I really wanted to talk about, the collaborativeness of working well with others within the organization, and the critical thinking skills of gathering information, and good listening skills and things like, and solving problems that I was hoping to bring towards the organization.
Have at it.
Have at it. Okay, and do you want me to answer the other question that you were offering?
You may answer both of those questions if you can do so in 30 seconds.
So what was the other question? I'm sorry.
The other question is, if you are a prospective board member, name one area on which you plan to focus and one project you would work to complete in that area.
Well, development is one area that I really would like to work on, and I would like to work with Ms. Frater about that. And, I just feel that there's a lot of internet areas that we can work on, and working with other people to try to bring some new ideas to helping development for the future.
Great. Anyone else here would like to address either one of those questions? Greg?
So one area that I definitely bring to the board is I am not a professional numismatist. I actually work in IT. And having worked for a number of Fortune 500 companies, there have been a number of policies and ideas that I've brought to the ANA where while we are a large coin club, we are also a $6.5 million a year small business. And we need to make sure that we have the appropriate corporate policies, HR policies, and things like that in place. And my professional background, I think, is an asset in that area that not everybody else running for the board necessarily has.
Thank you, Greg. Steve?
Yeah, it's been my observation sitting on the board and working with really talented people and so forth. The ANA is not short on ideas. We've got tons and tons and tons of ideas, and everybody has an idea how you can work better in the ANA and save the ANA and so forth. I don't think the ANA necessarily one person's going to save the ANA. That's not the objective. But I do see a weakness in the execution of all these ideas. Ideas are brought to the table, but how are you going to finance it? And what programs are you going to keep and what ones are you going to cut?
Anyone else like to comment on either one of these two questions? Okay, well, moving on then. Our next question, drawn at random, is for Ralph Ross. Ralph, what personal or professional experience do you have with nonprofit organizations? And we'd like you to cite examples of your involvement or interaction with such groups.
Around 20 years ago, I was selected as one of the members to get involved in the NES. It's called Network of Educators in Science and Technology. They meet every year on the campus of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it's a nonprofit organization. Our idea is to get science literacy out to the community and to the world and to the people involved, and especially educators and teachers and things like this. I thought it was a great opportunity. Our job was to try and instill the literacy in the community and attract more decent students who can endure a rigorous environment and rigorous subject, and better for our science community to have those people involved in creating more things associated with our technological world and artificial intelligence and things of this nature. So here's the opportunity for me to get involved with the nonprofit organization here, the 501c3 of the American Numismatic Association. I thought that was a great opportunity to segue into my skills and my associating with getting students involved in things like this. I thought it was a great opportunity. So I've seen some involvement in nonprofit organization and boards like that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Tom Urim.
Having experience on nonprofits is very important, but I just wanted to echo that being president of the Pennsylvania Association of Numismatists, your host club, and Pat McBride, my cohort over here, we face many of the same issues that the ANA faces as it regards to membership, as it regards to building the organization, and it's a much smaller scale, but a lot of the same issues. So we face those challenges, and we try to do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And I think that's the best for the ANA. And I'm also involved in many other church, public, and other affiliated nonprofits. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Others would like to comment on their personal or professional experiences with nonprofits. Okay. Our next question, drawn at random, is for Rick Ewing. Rick, the expense of serving one ANA member for 1 year exceeds the annual dues paid by that individual. What new sources of revenue should the association pursue? And would you consider revising the dues structure?
Oh, I definitely would support a change in the dues structure. Locally, where I am from, we're running through the same thing because we have a downturn of over 50 members over the last 2 years in a club that's almost a little over 100 members. And so as a consequence, we needed to restructure it, and we're working on different things to get the idea to do it and try and determine whether or not we're going to do it, maybe to extend the life of a membership instead of just 1 year, to extend it to a longer period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Would anyone else like to address this question about new sources of revenue the ANA might consider? Clifford.
Well, I would just like to offer one observation, and this, of course, is drawn more from a publishing background than from a membership background, but I consider subscriptions and memberships very much the same. Raising dues for an organization is counterproductive. You get more revenue, but you get less numbers. And in the long range, we are all about numbers.
Thank you, Cliff. Anyone else like to comment on this question?
Yeah.
Yes, Don.
Actually, I'm with Clifford. I'm not for restructuring the dues. I think we should make membership as accessible and inexpensive as possible. I am for coming up with new revenue streams, however. I think it's time for us to look at all of our assets, not just the tangible ones, but our intangible ones. I think if we take a look at it, a fresh look, and bring in maybe some outside consultants perhaps to look at our non-tangible assets, perhaps we could mine that data and information and find some other revenue streams.
Thank you, Don. Do we have anyone else? Yes, Paul.
I'm going to echo Cliff as well. I don't know if membership is the place that we need to attack on something like this, but we do have a wonderful opportunity, and there are so many value added that come with membership to the American Numismatic Association. And so what I would suggest is that we shouldn't open our door, we shouldn't be closed to anything outside of membership, because there are opportunities to monetize the website and other things that we can do, that we have opportunities to work with in the current infrastructure. And so I would say let's open the doors to anything and everything that we can generate revenue on.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Yes, Rick.
Another idea could be brought back is if, as an ANA, we build a better ANA product so that we attract more members. And if we have a better product, then maybe we will attract more members.
Any other questions? All right. Our next question, drawn at random, is for Mary Lynn Garrett. Mary Lynn, how should the ANA measure its success? By the number of members it has, by the opportunities for engagement and learning it offers collectors? And what does success look like to you?
Well, first of all, what I had said and when I thought through this whole process was the fact that I feel that it's fulfilling the mission of the ANA is one thing, the reputation of and the effectiveness of the employees that they have at the ANA, the educational teachings that they offer within the ANA, and the development measures of the ANA. Success is something an organization grows with and they show. And I feel like the World's Fair of Money that I've attended for the last 25 years is one way to show how successful the ANA has been over the years. Also, the other thing that I really truly feel that having the opportunity to come the past couple of years is with the summer seminar. To me, it is such, I have just really truly enjoyed the success of seeing the kids that leave the organization and come back out into the world and are now new, young, professional numismatic. And I just love all that. I really do. And I think that shows how ANA has been successful in educating the people that come from it.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Do we have any other panel members who would like to address that? Paul.
For many years, we measured our success based on how many lawsuits we didn't have. And so that happened for a long time. And when we became successful at that, then we turned the status quo into turning ourselves into a healthy organization. I think that at this point, if we had a true measurable, it would be to, now that we've established a healthy organization, I think at this point, we challenge the status quo and we see what else we can do. And so I think it's very important that we do that, and we're open to that as a board.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Yes, Rob.
I think an intangible asset that we probably have is, or could have maybe better, is building a true community. Being part of something that's special, I think, is important. Communicating on a personal level, even though we have such a large organization, to find a way to be able to communicate with them directly, I think would be, it would give a new dimension to what the ANA is, I believe.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, Clifford.
Well, I would just like to interject that to me, the success of our membership is going to be measured by its quality, its stability, and secondarily by its quantity. Very secondarily by its quantity. Most importantly is the quality and the stability of the membership.
Thank you, Cliff. Other comments? Okay. So our next question is directed to John Highfill. And John, here is your question. What should the association do to mentor and empower a younger generation of leaders to carry numismatics into the future?
Tough question, but 1948 is when I first got my hands on pennies and stuff and got into collecting. Kids today, they've got different things between the internet and movies and everything else, and it's kind of hard to get kids, and it's really hard to get older people. So it's a struggle on every organization. Organization I founded, we have the same process. There's got to be something out there that we can offer them, an Olive Garden or such, that could bring them to the table. Right now, raising dues would be terrible. Number two is trying to get them in with incentives. Maybe we can have some kind of incentives come along with the membership. In other words, if you get a membership, you also get this little, whatever it is, that we can get some gadget or something like that may help. But education is the only thing we can do, and you got to publish that website, and you just got to hit it hard.
Great. Thank you, John. Would anyone else like to respond to this question about what the association should do to mentor and empower a younger generation of leaders? Yes, Ralph.
Yes, well, some of you are aware that I've been in education for some time now. I pretty much enjoy it. It's my passion. The ANA has a couple of very good instruments. The young people could very well take part of this. For example, not long ago they were talking about trying to have a contest or a theme for National Coin Week. Some of the students I was involved with created a skit, which is something that is uniquely, distinctly different. The skit was associated with what was going on, say, maybe 50 years ago, associated with innovations, technologies, and discoveries. And they looked at a lot of things through their research, and they came up with the idea of this money dispensing machine, which is the ATM machine, and they created a skit. So there's other things they can do, such as National Coin Week, those kinds of things, coins raised, and we got a new product called the Adopt a School Kit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Anyone else? Yes, Don?
If our young people are here 24/7 on their cell phone, this is where, or internet, this is where numismatics has to be in the future. We need to cater to them. We need to put our product on this phone, either through internet curriculum or gamification, or some other way of engaging young people in the new era here of social media and the internet. That's where we need to be in the future.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else? Yes, Mary Lynn.
I think part of this is the fact that we all have to take our own ownership into this. Our company in the last couple of years has really had the opportunity to have 2 young numismatists that have come in, and because of us taking them under our wings and educating them and giving the opportunity to them to see what was out there, I think they have grown into numismatic professionals, and I just think that it becomes a part of all of us to have to take that responsibility.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Yes, Tom Urim.
I think we would also, based on my same thoughts that Dawn was saying there, is that, we're communicating with them, we're calling them at home. How are we looking at our communications? How are we looking at our efforts? We're starting to make strides in these different areas, but no one has home. How many of you have a home phone anymore? A couple. But exactly what Dawn said, this is where it is, and how do we reach out and get into their environment, in their world, and that's getting people their age involved and asking them. We need to reach out and listen.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else like to comment? Very good. Our next question is for Greg Lyon. Greg, the ANA has a robust financial endowment to secure its future. How could this be used to support programs of benefit to collectors?
So the one thing that I've been instrumental in getting the boards that I've served on to realize is that it is financially prudent to use some of our endowment or some of our financial reserves in order to provide programs on an ongoing basis. There are some members who obviously feel that we should be saving money for a rainy day. And obviously, we need to make sure that if we do use our financial resources for current operations, we do so in a sustainable manner. We've been very fortunate in the time that I've been on the board to not only be able to use the money that we have, but also to grow our financial reserves and to a very stable point. So I think what we need to do going forward is continue doing that. Look for capital improvements that we could make, whether they be in technology or in other resources, and make sure that we continue on a financially sustainable path, not only in the short term, but in the long term as well.
Thank you, Greg. Would anyone else like to comment on the question that the ANA has a robust financial endowment to secure its future? And how could this be used to support programs of benefit to collectors? Yes, Cliff.
Well, I would very much express myself in accord with what Greg has just said, but I would also add about 10 words to that, and that is that in doing so, we must be very selective so that we don't end up with a lot of cinders. Cinders. You know, back in the old days when you...
Burn money, burn money.
Marshmallows and everything, campfires.
Thank you, Cliff. Anyone else like to comment? Our next question is for Cliff Mishler. Cliff, you have 1 minute to offer your response to this question. National Coin Week in mid-April is perhaps our greatest opportunity to shine a light on the hobby and promote numismatics to the general public. How can the numismatic press and the ANA work together to get positive news coverage of National Coin Week and the hobby in the mainstream media?
You would ask that of an ex-publisher. And I have to say that, you know, good luck with answering that question. And if you don't believe me, ask Don Perlman. It's very tough to get that media coverage that is going to be productive. I don't think you can do it economically. You can only do it with good fortitude and luck.
Would anyone else like to address that question? Yes, Tom.
I think Cliff's right on the money there. Mainstream media, what is that? You know, we have to think of our, you know, how are our resources being used and how are we defining that? And I think we need to look a little bit further into the definition of that, because maybe we're looking in the wrong spot in a lot of places. And we could take an outreach that might redefine what we're saying about mainstream media.
I'll say
Don?
something. I'll take a little different tack. I think we have one of the greatest stories of all to tell. And I think the media is going to be there for us when we tell our story. We told a little story called the Saddle Ridge Hoard, and about the biggest burial find in the history, and got 1.65 million websites to turn on to it. We have those stories out there. We can generate that information. We have to do a better job doing it, but we can do it.
Thank you, Don. Yes, Rob.
I think mass media today is not what it was 10 years ago. I mean, if you think of mass media, it's where the eyeballs are, and the eyeballs are on social media. You know, you're talking about billions of people that look at it 100 times a day. So I think if we focused on social media, that would be the way to go. As far as the stories that hit the news, we all get the phone calls. It's always $1 million coin. Those are great stories, and they're good press for our hobby, but they're not real. You know, they don't hit home for people. They're not going to find those $1 million coins. So something a little different.
Yes, anyone else?
It's already been, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's already been said earlier, but about the self-evident communication, but it's got to get out. It can't be print and press and coin world and all that. You have to get out and get a website in there and stream it to every place you go with it. Everyone.
Great, thank you very much. Next question is for Paul Montgomery. Paul, do you think the ANA should continue to be governed by a board of governors a board of volunteers elected by the membership? Or should board members be appointed specifically for their professional skills, qualifications, and ability to advance the organization?
Yes. Yes is my answer. I do believe that the association is doing the right thing by allowing the membership to vote on their board members. I do believe that oftentimes we do experience times when there are folks that are really not qualified to run nonprofits, and so that can be frustrating at times. I think that everyone that's ever served on the board of directors of the ANA would consider themselves inadequate to do all of the things that need to be done. And we do have, but all of us have gifts that we can use to help the association. And so my answer to that is yes, we should have a vote, and yes, we should bring something to the table that will benefit the association.
Thank you, Paul. Would anyone else like to comment on that question? Yes, Ralph.
I'm on the board because I have passion and I love numismatics. Someone say, hey, you're not a good old boy. Well, I am a good old boy. I've been involved for some time. I enjoy it. And I think that we should have someone to represent all areas and all aspects, all representation. Well, I think when they mention, are you a good old boy, they're saying, well, you're not a big-time coin dealer. You're not hustling and bustling around. You're just miscellaneous. You don't know what's going on. Well, that's not true. As a grassroots collectors, I know what those small-time guys are thinking about. They're thinking about they enjoy the hobby. They want to get involved and share their passion and love with others. It's all about those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Any other comments? Yes, Tom.
Many of the nonprofits that I work with, most of the boards are appointed boards, and that was part of the question. And I think we need to keep an open mind to maybe doing what it needs to do to create the balance. Maybe there are some that are elected, and maybe there are some that are appointed as well, to create the balance that is needed and the expertise that is needed. Most of the nonprofits that I'm aware of, people are selected based on the community involvement and their other expertise. So I think we need to keep an open mind.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Yes, Greg.
I think it's going to be very difficult to go away from an elected board just because many of our members consider this to be a large coin club, which it is. I think while we keep an elected board, I think that the leadership of numismatics, and I'm going to say leadership of numismatics as opposed to leadership of the ANA, that everybody seek out qualified people to run for the board. And also we need to do a better job of making sure what people's expectations are when they serve on the board, so that we do have qualified people who can continue to move the association forward.
Great.
Barbara, follow up.
Yes.
The other option that we could have is, let's say we have a foundation board that would report to the board, and we have other boards that are related to discussions that are relevant. But I'm thinking particularly foundation board that could act and have appointed members that would focus just on that and then report to the board. And you'd have some liaison also with the board that could be made in official capacity.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Greg. Next, Don.
Yeah, I have a similar idea. I agree we need the passion and volunteers and elected officials by our membership, but we also need to seek out expertise in other areas, and I'm going to suggest, if I'm president in a presidential advisory board, that will seek out non-voting advisors in special areas that we need to help us move forward into the next epoch of our association.
Thank you, Don. Other comments? Our next question is for Rob Oberth. And Rob, does the abundance of free information on the internet undermine the value of the ANA's educational offerings on its website or at its seminars? Should the ANA dedicate resources from its endowment to further develop its online educational programs?
I think the question is, does it undermine it? Probably. I think we're past the point of being able to do anything about that. So I think we have to try to position ourselves to stay ahead of that. So, the ANA Summer Seminar is, you have to go to Colorado. I think that we should probably use it as a conversion tool. So, as a board member, I would, suggest putting videos out, snippets, not putting all of it online for e-learning, but putting out some content and using that as a conversion tool to increase summer seminar attendance. And I would also suggest doing more local courses versus just at the shows or just in Colorado as well.
Thank you, Rob. Other questions? Other comments on this question? Okay. Well, at this point now, we'd like to entertain questions from the audience.
I never got a question.
I'm sorry.
No, I never got a question.
Oh, you didn't get, thank you. I was just about to ask if everyone got a question here.
I paid for this, Mike.
Yes, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you. I had a question left over, and you've answered my question.
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
No, thank you very much.
That's right. You know the deal here.
Well, here's your question.
I
Okay.
can hardly wait.
So, Tom, the Board of Governors has set an expectation that elected officers should donate to and serve as fundraisers for the ANA. How do you see yourself in that role? For example, if the ANA received an unrestricted donation of $100,000, to which ANA program, service, or operation would you like to see these funds directed?
If we received $100,000, and we should be so lucky to do so, and we're out there asking, and it's all up to us as board members to ask. I think you talk to the donor and you ask them where they'd like to have that money best spent. Somewhat restricted, somewhat unrestricted. There's a lot of different ways. I appreciate the question because I actually have helped and worked on different foundation ideas. I'm a contributor myself. I think if you're a board member, it's your responsibility to give back financially. It's really every board that I'm on. I mean, they call me, they email, what's going to be your commitment? What's going to be your 1-year commitment? What's going to be your 5-year commitment? At what level? And if some are not able to do that, but there are ways to invite your friends or other people that might be able to support the organization on your behalf. So it doesn't always have to be your resources if you can't. So I don't want to discourage a young person from trying to run for the board if they don't if that's a given. But there's ways that we can help everyone be a part of raising money, and that gets back to my foundation ad hoc committee idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments on that question? Yes, Rick.
I guess about 6 years ago, I got approached, or didn't get approached. I approached the Doug Mudd about the mini mint downstairs and asked him what he was doing with it. And he said he could use some support. And I started giving him support. And over the years, we have, continued this support of him. And then all of a sudden, about 18 months ago, he called and said, hey, we had a small catastrophe. The mini mint broke. And so anyway, I got to talk to a few of my friends, and we raised enough money in just about a week and a half, and the mini mint was repaired, and new press was bought in and got started. And that's the kind of thing I think we ought to do.
Thank you, Rick. Other comments? Yes, Cliff.
I guess I would have a comment on the second portion of that. I can't ever remember that dang microphone.
I'm happy to restate that if you
Yeah.
like.
No, you don't have to restate the question. I just have to restate my answer. That's so. But if we were to get a major unrestricted donation, I think one of the very important things, and this is kind of based on my past history on the board because I'm not so current today, but I think it probably still pertains today, is that the ANA needs to have a quality database where its membership is concerned and where its prospects are concerned. And this is one that would track both the actively available clienteles and members who have dropped out of membership, because in publishing, we always found that our most valuable source when we were going out for new members, if you will, was the roster of our dropped members.
Thank you, Cliff. Other comments? Sure. Yes, Steve.
Look, we can all sit on our keisters around a boardroom and come up with all kinds of ideas, and but without the finances to do them, then it becomes very, very difficult. And so all the volunteer boards I've served on, and including I was a deputy district commissioner for Washington, D.C. and the Boy Scouts, and we were challenged with the same type of issues. But the board members, 80% of your time's got to be spent either giving money, getting money, or plan on getting off the board. You have to raise funds to be on a volunteer board. This is one of the few volunteer boards I've ever served on that does not have a commitment. Now, I'm not saying you have to put the money in yourself, but you at least have to be willing to say thank you to someone who did.
Thank you, Steve. Other comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Ralph.
If by fortune that we find someone who's a beautiful philanthropist and they say, hey, here's $100,000, how could you use this to expand and help to continue a long-range program for the American Numismatic Association? I would say use that money and create what I call a TECH, T-E-C-H, teacher, educator, curator, and historian. Send those people out to the schools, universities, institutions, areas where we want to get those people involved. For example, we had a meeting today, and I walked out of the meeting and walked down to the Boris area. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of students. Says, oh boy, someone came up with a big yellow bus and dropped off a bunch of students so they can enjoy some numismatic camaraderie. And he said, no, there's a steel educational tech department showing and telling down the hallway, and so those students are here for those reasons. So I was saying, oh my God, I thought I was going to have my dream come true. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Yes, Steve.
I think it's a great idea, Ralph. The question I would want to pose, though, is who's responsible for getting the $100,000 gift? Whose job is that?
Yeah.
Sure.
We all contribute and donate all the time. I think it's imperative. If you're part of the board, you must give some treasure. You must get involved. Some of us have more means, more motivation, and then better monitors. That's the M&M versus the TT&T, time, talent, and treasure. Giving money is important. All of us know that. I think in the religious aspect, they say, give us 10% of what you're earning. And that's just a basic foundation for some of the interests. The idea is that if we had $100,000, this is what you do. Money's coming from all over the place. We've got the Walton Foundation, those people, and things like this. I think it's great, and we all give, and we continue to give. Thanks.
Again, whose responsibility is it to go get the $100,000?
The Board of Directors.
Thank you.
Yes, Mary Lynn.
The only thing I have to interject is the fact that if we did get the money, I do feel like the younger generation is really on the social media, and I think with social media and marketing is a way to go if we get that amount of money. I think there's avenues for us to get some organizations within the organization to get together to figure out the best way to use that funding. And I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Other comments? Okay. Now we'll entertain some questions from the audience. And you may ask the candidates to respond or direct your question. You may ask all the candidates to respond, or you can direct your question to a specific individual. The same 1-minute candidate response limit will apply. Yes, Richard Josephiak.
This is for the two candidates for president. Would you just state what are your top 3 priorities, number 1, 2, and 3?
Let's start with Don Kagan first.
The first priority is to, for online education, transform the way numismatics is delivered. And that's to get to the young people through social media, through the internet. And I believe that's extremely important. I think we should work on looking at our assets again. I mentioned this before, not only our tangible assets, but our intangible assets, and look at who, not just who we are now, and or analyze, but who are we going to be? What kind of association are we going to be in the future? And perhaps bring in some outside help to help us define what that might be, and find perhaps even more revenue stream. And the other is to look at education in general, and Coins in the Classroom, and other programs that I helped start, and mentor programs. I think this is our mission, and we have to look at all aspects of that. That's where I would focus attention.
Thank you, Don. Steve Ellsworth.
We're all dancing around the subject. The real problem that we are faced with is that we're 127 years of tradition unhampered by progress. Think about that for a second. We need to revamp our entire business model so it's relevant, and we are relevant in the coin collecting and coin history and education world. We are a tired, worn out association that needs to revamp itself, and we need to start with a solid business plan that the board works on, and then get confirmation of that business plan through some outside consultants. But we have to do the groundwork. The board has to roll up its sleeves and be willing to do the work. You also have to be willing to take the political heat, because that's going to be something new and something different. But if we do not do that, we will never be relevant again as in the good old days. We have to reinvent ourselves and redo what we're trying to do. Our objectives may not be valid in this time frame that we're currently operating in.
Thank you, Steve. Other questions from the audience?
You can do it after this one.
Thank you, Jeff.
This would be for anybody can answer or talk about it. Because it's a subject that's probably been one of the hottest subjects since I've been involved with ANA, and I get probably asked this question more than almost any other question about is what is the thought of any of the board members on the wisdom or the whether or not being in Rosemont, anchoring the World's Fair money in Rosemont for financial reasons and for a lot of different reasons, but as opposed to moving around the country, because that's something I get asked a whole lot, and maybe some of the membership might want to know how some people feel about that.
Who would like to respond to Mr. Garrett's question?
I'm happy to. I don't want to.
Certainly.
Let somebody else know.
Yes, John.
For those that know anything about me, I put on the National Civil Law Convention for 20 years, and we moved it around the country, and we found that certain areas are better than other areas. Chicago would be one of them. My base was St. Louis. We did Los Angeles, we did San Francisco, we did Phoenix, we did everywhere. But you find the ones the best. But to anchor yourself to one place, which I would be favorable for as a dealer, would be Chicago. But there's a whole country out there that contributes to this organization. And these people are wanting to see you come to this town or that town or this town or the other town. So I think it'd be okay to take a majority of the time and come to Chicago in disguise, if I would say that word, and go, but keep going to other states to have conventions. Those also. I don't think I'd be solely in Chicago on every day. Thank you.
Yes, Paul.
Jeff, based on what I have learned over the course of time, is that we probably will end up anchoring in Chicago. If in a perfect world, we would move to a different city every year. We would be all over the country. I am astonished indeed on how prohibitive that is. The details and the costs of doing business in some of the cities, it makes it cost prohibitive, and so we are extremely limited on how many places fit all of our criteria. And so I believe that we'll get anchored, and I think it's going to be an economic decision, not what we want. We would love to serve the whole country. It's just it's next to impossible to hit all the places.
Yes, other comments. Tom.
I think that's exactly what it's going to come down to, but what would also be nice, and a couple of the other national organizations that I'm part of, they'll do 2 years, let's say, in Chicago, then the next one will be in the East, then 2 years, then the next one in the West. So I think we could open it up to where we could do some main anchor, but still have a little bit of an outreach that we still need to have. We definitely need it, but as was said, we just can't, Paul is right on the money. It's going to be difficult.
Yes, Rick.
Well, I think what we need to do is not only just anchor someplace, but we need to find where the resources are and the personnel that we have to do to get these conventions up and running, because you can't put it into some place like, for instance, down here where I am in Houston, where there's just barely 100 members in the organization, and there's not enough resources. But whereas in Chicago, you're drawing from a larger population and you've got more going on. That's what we need to do, is find where the population is that's going to be responding to doing the shows.
Thank you, Rick. Other comments? Yes, Mary Lynn.
I agree with Tom earlier. I do think that a couple of the other nonprofits that I've worked for, they try to base it in one and anchor in one city, just like Chicago, but they move from the East and the West Coast every other, a couple years. So I think it does good to be able to go in both directions to allow people, but anchoring is, as I see, economically, as we've talked before, is probably a good thing. But I do think having a little opportunity to go in each direction does open it up to some members that cannot attend sometimes and come all the way this way to Chicago.
Additional comments? Clifford.
Well, you can deliver bigger and better if you're in a focused location, and ultimately you can bring people to a bigger event easier than you take a big event to people. That's the bottom line, in my opinion.
Yes, thank you, Cliff. Other comments from the candidates? Okay, another question from the audience. Yes, Nancy Wilson.
I would like to make a comment of this last thing. John and I are true A&E supporters, and we like to go to a location, and John will disagree with me. We came here, and unfortunately, the airlines routed us through LaGuardia. So the plane we got on was a small plane. If we were a dealer, that would not be good. And I know that happened to Gary once, because we were on the same plane he was on. I don't remember which city we were going to. And we gave us our seats so he could put his merchandise under the seat. You need a place that has a big airport. I don't call this a big airport, and a lot of them do not come in here. Also, to get from the airport to here, it was quite far, and it cost John and myself, we did take a cab because it was late, it cost us $50. When we go to Chicago, and we don't live there anymore, we live in Florida, so we still have to come up there. When we go up there, the hotels pick you up at the airport. They don't charge you, but you do give them a tip. So that's one thing, and we rather spend it at the show than to stay in a hotel. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Nancy. Yes, Kurt Bellman.
Collectors, I've found, have a certain set of skills. And unfortunately, one of those skills is spreading rumors. I have heard a rumor, and I'm not going to aim it at any particular candidate, but I've heard a rumor that there is a candidate who is interested in perhaps discontinuing the exhibiting portion of our program at our shows. And I would like as many candidates who would care to either fess up to that belief or say why you don't agree with it. It's something that I would also hope that anybody who feels that way, they need to reconsider it.
Yes, what candidates would like to respond to Mr. Bellman's question?
Not me.
To my knowledge, there's been no discussion of discontinuing that program.
Yes, John.
Yes, this is the ANA, and it's a nationwide organization. It's a nonprofit organization, and we don't pick and choose the things we want to do, pick the gravy off the top, or whatever you take off the top, cherry, I guess. But the exhibits at the convention is what it's all about. I mean, you think it's about the dealers and the money and everything else. It is about that, but they're secondary. This is an educational organization. They have a great library, and they've been that way forever, and I cannot see that ever happening, at least on my watch.
Yes, Tom.
Having started out exhibiting 1-cent Lincolns and working all those years and contributing and building, I think the exhibitor base is a real star. If you go down there, I was down there most of the afternoon this afternoon, and it is full of people looking at and the exhibits are terrific, and that's the way it is at every show, particularly the ANA show. And the thing is that when you do have a vibrant exhibit area, you are bringing in collectors who are very serious collectors who are spending a lot of monies to upgrade and create new exhibits as well as working on the ones that they have. So that would not happen on my watch, Kurt.
Other comments? Yes, Ralph.
I've been a proponent of DICE, D-I-C-E, dealers, investors, collectors, and exhibitors. The exhibitions is where things are. It's the opportunity for you to show your information, to say, I've got the best there is, I want to show you and explain it to the world. We have to have educational exhibits. Now, some of you might recall that they'll say, oh, exhibits down the hall, turn right, go up 2 ladders and find it. Some of you might say, oh, where are the YNs? We don't have any young numismatists exhibitors. So the exhibitions has been taking a hit over the years. I've been an exhibitor and the judge, and it's not something that when it's time for planning that it has to prioritize. It's always set to the back burner. Oh, the exhibitors, go down the hall, turn right, you'll find an exhibit area. It's on the next level, the next floor. I think exhibitors should be just as much as paramount as some of the coin dealers. I know exhibitors are not bringing any money in, but those are the exhibitors. After all, those are what the dealers are looking for, the people who need the material to show us. I remember some guy said, I got the best material, I want to show this side west of the Mississippi or west of this side of the hemisphere. That's a guy who's really involved, who knows his material. We're all exhibitors at heart, but we forgot about the most important part. That's the education of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ralph. First Cliff and then Tom.
Well, a convention is made up of exhibits, educational programs, splinter organization meetings, and BORS. Now, for obvious reasons, BORS tends to take the highlight, the focus and everything, but many of you have heard me refer to the fact that we're a community. And so we're dealers, we're collectors, we're writers, we're promoters, whatever. We're a community, and we aren't going to be successful if we don't embrace all elements of our community.
Thank you, Cliff. Yes, Tom.
One thing that we haven't really addressed, and I think it's we talk about the financial side of things, but mentorship. And I'm going to tell you something that just happened down at the exhibit area and how important it is. This gentleman that I had in our club, I told him about exhibiting, and I showed him how to create an exhibit, showed him how to do some different things. And he's been working at this for 3 years now. And he hasn't been able to really afford to go to the other shows. I've taken some of the exhibits for him. But he's local, so he came to this show. And he thought about dropping his exhibit for National Coin Week. And I was talking, and we mentioned this. Well, I'm going to make it short. He's 28 years old, or thereabout, Carnegie Mellon graduate, has the interest in coins. Well, he won National Coin Week, and he's going to get a scholarship to the summer seminar. Do you think that's going to change what he is going to do over the next 30 years? And we have to take a responsibility to create these opportunities one by one with each individual. And I think that's a big, strong way to reach out to this 20 to 40 age group. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Other comments? Yes, Greg.
I personally cannot believe that there would be support from the Board of Governors or the members to eliminate exhibits, and I will in no way support that ever taking place.
Thank you, Greg. Other comments? Yes, another question here from the. Would you like to go ahead?
I just wanted to make sure we quelled that rumor before it got outside this room. Well done.
Yes, another question here from Bob Campbell.
I would like to ask two questions. First being how important it is to you candidates to conduct yourself with integrity in your personal and business dealings with other members inside the ANA. The second one, how important is it to you to come to a state for a coin show where there's no sales tax?
And would you like that to go to the entire
I would love
panel?
everybody to answer it,
Okay.
if it's possible.
All right, so who would like to address that question first?
Well, I'll address it first by saying that I don't have any reason to not come to any state because I'm not in business. I understand the commercial aspect of it, but from my standpoint, I would go anywhere, and I think I've given evidence of that I go anywhere to a coin show. So.
I no longer have that. I'm just going to go down the deal. If that's okay, can we just do that? Because we're all going to talk.
Is everyone in agreement with that? We'll just start down here and we'll proceed down to
Cliff
the other
mentioned
end.
earlier that we're a community, and part of that community is the bourse, and it is one of the most important. And while I too don't have that need anymore, I'm going to go wherever the ANA is. But to make it a better show, we need to be in places where there is no state sales tax. It is a deterrent for people to do business, and it's a deterrent for collectors. It'll cost every collector additional 8 or 10% on everything that they buy, and it's just not a good situation. And there's plenty of states that don't have sales tax requirements. And so I hope that answers your first question. And the second question, the first question is about integrity, and I would hope that all my brethren here would nobody would admit that they wouldn't be anyway, and so I'm answering in the affirm for all of my colleagues up here.
Well, for question number one is that myself as a person, I like to be friendly with everybody, and occasionally I find out someone doesn't like me and it bothers me. So I think that we all should get along with all our not community, but all the dealers should get along and they should know each other and et cetera like that. I'm going to set that aside. That's not a good answer. But the sales tax is a no-brainer. You can't go to a state with this organization, this foundation of money, and try and go to a state that charges sales tax and alienates dealers, and they won't come either. So it'd be a failure in the start.
I would definitely support the move to stay in tax-free zones as far as taxes on the coins and stuff goes. And I do that. I would go wherever it is, but I mean, sales tax is usually just put on me as a purchaser than it more as the dealer, except the dealer has to pay the tax that he collects. As far as treating everybody here, I think everybody here is worth treating as a decent human being, and I wouldn't treat anybody any differently than I treat myself.
I think that's well put. And as far as and if you do have an issue on integrity and so forth, you have to fix it. It's tough when you lose it, and you have to fix it if you have a tarnish. But I think most people are willing to review and look at you personally and say, it's a good person. As far as the no tax and no bullion, of course, we fight that all the time in this state, and I just assume you just stay in Pittsburgh.
I too, I think is axiomatic. We have to be at the highest standards of ethics and openness and transparency as possible, especially here on the board. We represent our whole numismatic community. As far as state sales tax, for 38 years, the ICTA has been involved in helping to make sure that as many states as possible is sales tax free, and we've been very successful. I'm happy to say that I've been on the board there since the very beginning, and ANA has supported it for as long as I've known. So that's important. I'll go anywhere for a coin show, but the reality is to get the kind of dealers and the networks, we have to keep the sales tax free states.
Steve.
Yeah, I agree with ICTA's a pretty good organization for helping and assisting on this, but they don't do it. It's got to be the individuals that's doing it. I'm chairman of the Tennessee Initiative, I've been on the Hill meeting with the Senate and the House. I've testified. I'm raising the money and so forth, and we're going to clear the sales tax on precious metals, coins, and currency out of Tennessee this legislative session. Pretty sure we can do it. Things look good. We've got a very good team put together, and ICTA's given us good support. But like I said, it comes down to the execution. You can talk a good game, but unless you can execute it, it's not going to take place. So that's a very, very important thing. I would not be in favor of going to a convention that had a sales tax situation in it that would be restrictive on our dealers, because without our bourse being vibrant, we just cannot finance our conventions.
Well, let's take a look at the first item. Unscrupulous dealers. There's some of those out there. We all know them. We know who they are. Some we don't know who they are. Surreptitiously, as my wife would say. They're amongst us and they do all kinds of things. I think this is imperative. If you're a board member or if you're involved in the numismatic community, you treat everyone fairly. It was a story many years, I gotta tell you. I was buying I think it was a 1945 nickel. And the guy wanted, he said, how much money do you have? And I said, $3. He said, that's a $3 coin. I said, okay, here's the $3. I was happy. I went down a couple tables, met a guy, his name was Ralph Hinkle. I showed him my coin. He said, oh, great. So I got it from the guy down there for $3. He said, $3? I've got one for 35 cents. So I went down there and he says, oh, Johnny Joe, did you sell this coin to this young man? He says, well, yeah, but he was hemming and hawing. He gave my money back and gave me the coin. He says, okay, some of us are different. I said, okay, I understand. So yes, there's got to be a code of ethics. That's understood. About the sales tax issues, I think ICTA's doing a great job. Some states that require a little bit more to get their state coffers running, and the more popular states are the ones that the dealers are attracted to and they enjoy going to. I think it's imperative you choose a state for your coin show or coin shows where they have some viable relationship with the tax laws. Thank you.
Yes, Mary Lynn?
Okay, the next one is about the integrity, and I really feel that when people decide that they want to be on the board, that they've really looked at themselves closely. It's like sitting here with your mission statement and your leadership. I mean, don't come to the board unless you want to be a real leader and have that integrity. If not, you need to look at yourself and decide that before you come on to a board or even apply for it. The other thing is, I think we would probably travel wherever, but we would like it to be, good for everyone at the time.
Yeah, I think integrity is everything. I think we need to all hold ourselves to a higher standard, if for nothing else, to make sure that the next generation that's coming behind us knows how to act and knows that they'll be held accountable for their actions. We certainly don't want a stigma that coin dealers are like pawn shops, that a few bad eggs kind of pollute the entire profession. If we let too much happen, that could happen. Not that it is, but yeah, holding ourselves to a higher standard. Tax laws, yes. States with better tax laws would be good.
And
when you
Greg?
join the board of the ANA, you have the fiduciary responsibility to the organization, and I feel that goes beyond just making sure that we use our assets properly, but that you also don't tarnish the organization through your own deeds and actions. So I think integrity is very important. And I do understand the criticality of sales tax in making convention decisions. I think the one challenge that we do have is just the limited number of venues that respond to our request for proposal. And that will always be a key factor that we play in there, but there may be a situation where we only get bids from cities that potentially have sales tax, and we'll have to deal with it if that situation arises.
Barbara, I have a follow-through.
Yes.
I just want to remind everybody that's coming on the board that Utah has no sales tax on coins. So we would love to have a come to solve this.
And Oklahoma City.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Additional questions or comments? Rick, you have 30 seconds.
Bob, you talk about the sales tax from the coins. Take a look at how much money we pay for our occupancy taxes and our airplane taxes. I mean, I paid $48 and something on my airplane tax, and I'm paying, $30-something in occupancy taxes. buying a coin. I don't know. It seems like a smaller drop.
We'll have a brand new airport in 1 year that's going to be 4 times the size of our current one.
Other comments?
Well, Nashville's putting a new runway in about every other week. And the least number of cranes I've seen in downtown Nashville is 14. Normally, it's around 20. And we have 100 families moving into Nashville every single day. It's been like that for 5 years.
Yes, another audience question. Yes, Sandy Hill.
This came up in the rep meeting this morning and directed to everyone. I know Don's, but will you support the representative program with actions as well as words?
I'll start out because Sandy just mentioned me and how I talk to the reps, and we have a number of ideas and to support the backbone of our association, the clubs, and the representatives and district and regional representatives represent the most important part of the communication of that, and I have a number of different initiatives to push that forward, and this association needs to take the lead on doing that, whether it's helping them with their communication, with their newsletter, or a chat room, or getting them help in finding experts to speak at their coin clubs. So ANA can take the lead in that, and I certainly will be working to that end as president.
Thank you, Don. Another comment. Steve?
Yeah, during the last 12 months, I brought in 4 ANA coin clubs to the fold with reps in each one of them, and I've worked very closely, and when the rep program needs assistance and help, I get the call.
Another comment. Clifford?
Yeah, clubs are an important element of that community that I talked about before, but obviously the commitment where the board is concerned to clubs must be balanced against the other commitments that it has to the other aspects of our community. So I would not be resistant to whatever is brought forward where clubs are concerned, but I would always balance it against what the other requirements are.
Any other comments here? Ralph?
The representative program is a tentacle part of the whole ANA, the whole numismatic community, to be honest with you. It's those foot soldiers. Those are the guys who are in the local coin clubs, and they're sitting around those meetings, sharing information that comes from the ANA representatives at the top. And they're very important. I think it's important. I think it's very, very important. The information that the foot soldiers, the representatives and their programs go all the way to the top, I think we should help them in every way possible, help them with all their education, every opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Other comments?
Sure.
Yes, 30 seconds, Steve.
We've got the Brentwood Franklin Coin Club has 55 members. 52 are members of the ANA. Is there any other clubs that can say that?
That's a high percentage.
Other comments on this question? Yes, Jeff, did you have another question here from the audience?
I don't know if I had a question or a comment, but when I was president with Kim, we had a program, and we actually gave memberships for coin club members they could join for free, and we had very little acceptance of that. So, as a comment, I guess for the board, for members are running, and everybody has a comment on that situation, but. I think maybe the club reps could do a better job or people who are involved in the clubs could do a better job of convincing people to join. But there's a real disconnect with where Kim and I we thought we'd get 4,000 members like overnight, and it didn't happen. So I don't know if anybody wants to have a comment on that, but that was a real issue, and it's not as easy as just reaching out to the coin clubs, because the ANA has That's not new news. That's been tried really, really hard, even to the point of like, hey, you can join for free. And we had, a lot of people thought to go to local coin clubs for donuts and coffee. So that is like, it's probably a comment. Anybody else wants to comment on that comment rather than a question? But that's it. We tried very, very hard from the club rep part on that in the past.
Jeff,
Don,
I would.
yes,
I would
30
just-
seconds. Yes.
I would say it isn't just that it's free. We have to show why. We have to give them reason, compelling reason, why they should be members of A&A as well as the club. And look at their issues of privacy in addition to that. We have some other ideas that we will go out and make initiatives to get club members who are not A&A members. That's a great fertile area, but it has to be compelling, and I think we can do that.
Thank you, Don. Any other comments on this discussion? Yes, Ralph, 30 seconds.
We've all heard the comment, what am I going to get out of this? I mean, what's in it for me? When you try to say, hey, here's a membership and it's free, they will reverse it. What's in it for me? Well, we've got an opportunity to get your name, address, phone number. It gets on a big database. You get maybe some things in the mail. People look at you differently and things like this. And some people still want to be incognito. Quiet collectors. There's a lot of quiet collectors I know in the Houston area. When I was canvassing the greater Houston area, not many of those people are even A&A members. And they just said, oh, they let their membership lapse. They're not involved. They don't want to get out there. It's too much trouble. Too big. It's like driving a big car. You just need a little small car to enjoy yourself. Thanks.
Yes, Tom.
Just real quickly, we need to know what our owner benefits are and what the owner benefits are as it relates to the good quality. Are we selling owner benefits and good quality, and balance that out in our marketing?
Thank you,
Barb?
Tom. Yes, Cliff.
I just would like to offer one comment on this. And, from my history over the years, and I've never been a real active local club member, but I have interfaced with clubs a lot over the years. And I have to congratulate Richard for the job that he has been doing in recent years, where the gelling of the club program is concerned, because he's certainly done the best job that I've seen in the last 20 to 25 years as far as chairing that committee. So, Richard, you're to be highly commended for the effort that you have put forward.
Yes, and that's Richard Josephiak. Thank you, Richard. Other comments on this question? Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, Mr. Bucky.
Google has a mission phrase, not even a mission statement. It's organizing the world's information. What is the mission phrase for the ANA?
And you would like that addressed by any and all candidates? Okay.
Less than 30 seconds. It's a phrase.
Yes. Okay. So, please, Paul, go ahead.
The ANA exists to encourage people to study and collect coins and other types of memorabilia.
Another. Yes, Tom.
Our mission's educational outreach in relation to the hobby of numismatics and the study of that.
Other comments? Yes, John.
It's going to come out like it's about me, but it's not. But education and nonprofit has been in my blood all my life. And like Tom said, that we were the first donors to ITCA in 1983. I founded a roundtable in 1982. All these been I've been on board for those all the time. And all I got to say is that it's in your blood. And if you don't have it, you don't have it, but you need to get it. And I think that the only way to go is that way.
Barb?
Thank you, John. Yes.
I guess my few words are the ANA is for the collector.
Thank you, Cliff. Other comments? Yes, Ralph.
Everything's been said. It's been good and great and wonderful, and that's part of the main mission. Our mission is strictly about education, getting the word out, helping people understand the world of numismatics and the ways it has available for us. It's a lot of history. I think is where we're standing on a historical output.
Thank you. Ralph, anyone else? Yes.
I'll keep it simple, numismatic education and community.
Great. Anyone else?
Barbara, you said. One phrase that I would add is that we need, all of that is good, but we need to be the premier educational outreach organization. We need to be the one that they come to. How do we do it, though?
Other comments? Another audience question? Yes, Gary.
I think that, it's obvious that the costs for everything are going up dramatically. You talked about anchoring our coin show in Chicago, those types of things. We have an education mission, and I've heard it said that the good news is we have a phenomenal library and a phenomenal museum in Colorado Springs. The bad news is we have a phenomenal library and museum in Colorado Springs. So I guess what I'm wondering is, from an outreach standpoint, does any of the potential candidates have any thoughts about the potential of moving our museum to a better location where it's going to get a lot more use, a lot more viewing by the public? If we're doing that public outreach, that's a great place to start. So I'd like to hear from any of the board members that have a thought about that situation.
Who would like to respond to Gary's question?
I'll start by saying that, somewhere back about 1964, I was not in favor of it going to Colorado Springs. I felt that it needed to be in a central area of the United States from a transportation and from a population standpoint. Colorado Springs is a wonderful place, but it's not the place where the ANA headquarters should be.
Yes, another comment. Rob.
Yeah, I think it does seem strange to me where it is located right now, because it seems like like my network at least, the concentration is highly located in the Northeast and in Florida, and those are obviously where most of our members are, and probably most of the instructors probably live that currently instruct, so it would make sense to have it in a place like that.
Yes, Tom.
Kind of relates back to the question I was originally asked, and one of the exciting things that would happen is if we did find that benefactor who would allow us to house the museum in a different location, in a different city, just to create the excitement that would be evolved around that change and around the opportunity. Once again, we talked about the outreach. We might not be able to do conventions everywhere, every place, but maybe we have the outreach of being able to move the museum based on a benefactor's bequest.
John.
Before I start, I think it's going to be cost prohibitive, but like the MLB, they have these big trailers with a display and the walls all open up, and they go all around the country to all the ballparks and other places like that. But the idea that you could take the museum and everything and do that would be a good idea, but I think it might cost too much to do it.
Another comment. Yes, Ralph.
Colorado Springs is a nice place. Everybody knows where it is. Some of us don't, but some of us do. Yesterday afternoon, there was a talk about the museum, the library, and those things, get an opportunity to move around different parts of the United States or the country. Maybe a city that have a huge metropolitan area, with much more opportunity for visitors and attractions. Maybe on a loan basis or a temporary branch, or just traveling, just move the museum and stays there for 6 months here or there in some area. Opportunity for more people to see what is numismatics, what it's all about. Colorado Springs is great. It's a nice place. I enjoy the mountains in the area, but it's not displayed, and a lot of energy is not involved all across America just for it to be in the Colorado Springs. It should have an opportunity to maybe move into different locations, some metropolitan areas. Someone mentioned New York, Chicago, those things. Those cities are already crowded, but then we get much more bang for the buck. That's being assess determination. Thank you.
Paul, you go first.
Yes, Paul.
I'm so delighted that we're talking about this. The museum is a tough decision, and the logistics and everything that's involved in that is so much more complex than we're going to be able to establish here. That being said, I really am glad that we are challenging the status quo. May not ever get anywhere, but there are grants, there are strategic partners that could make this a possibility. There are things that we could look into that could make this a possibility. It would be exciting for the hobby. It would be exciting for collectors all over the country to be in New York City or in Chicago or in Washington D.C. And so that's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's not going to be something we're going to answer today. But boy, I am so glad we're talking about it. That's what we need to do.
Yes.
Gary?
Don.
Barb,
I'm sorry.
Can I comment? You know, when I first became involved in A&A politics, one of the first things that came to the board was the previous board had made a decision to go to Indianapolis for the convention, and I forget what year that was, but there was a hue and cry that Indianapolis was no place to go with an A&A convention because they didn't have a big enough airport. There wasn't anything but cornfields around there and all that sort of good stuff. I did a very detailed survey of A&A membership, numismatic news circulation, and we'd gotten a bunch of names from Coin World by advertising for subscribers, and so I sampled their audience also. And I found out that Indianapolis was the most attractive place in the country as far as A&A membership and coin collectors were concerned, as far as them driving in for a convention. It was the most centrally located place in the United States. Now, I'm not suggesting that A&A should move to Colorado or to Indianapolis, but it should be somewhere in that orbit, if you will, quite frankly.
Yes, Don.
Gary, this is a great question for a half century ago. We are living in 2019. It's almost a moot point. In today's world of virtual libraries, of virtual museums, of taking, if you want to move it around, we can move it with our shows. But it's too late. We don't need it. We don't need to move it. It's a great place for summer seminar. It's a great place to visit. But we don't need it now. We can have headquarters virtually anywhere now because the museum, the library, and anything else that's physical can now be virtual and online. And we can still get the visual wonderfulness of coins by going to coin shows and moving those things. We have wonderful exhibits that we can show around the world. But that was yesterday's question, or a half century ago question. That was answered. Today, we have to look at what our situation is now and what we need. That's not the place to put money. We don't need a new physical location. We need to go virtual and worldwide.
Additional comments?
Coin collecting is a tactile type of hobby. I mean, there's a certain amount of intrinsic value in if you hold a coin, you're holding a piece of history, you're holding a piece of education, where it came from, how all this, and if you start putting it all, I realize that you need to get the information out virtually. That's a good idea, but to still have a place where we can have the tactile nature of the coins themselves. I mean, you go out on the boards. I mean, you don't go out there on the boards so that you can get an electronic image of this coin. You go out there on the boards to get a coin to put in your hot little hand and put in your hot little pocket and take it home, put it in the hot little box on your shelf. And I mean, my shelf goes like this in my house, and my wife frets every time something comes in the house. I mean, she hits a fan every time it comes around because she says, "Oh, you spent more than $1,000 this month on coins. Do you realize that?" And I mean, well, I can't argue with that. So,
Kurt, do you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment to you.
Okay.
As a relatively, especially compared to the folks up there, short-term member of the ANA, I would love to read an article in the Numismatist about how we came to be in Colorado Springs, because our federal charter says that the principal offices shall be in the District of Columbia.
Thank you. Duly noted, and we will think about that. So, I believe, yes, I'm sorry.
I just had a comment for you, Gary. I was on the National Committee for Development and Education at the Smithsonian, and one of the things that I will say is, like, with having the education in that, I think there needs to be, with traveling with all the kids and going to all the centers for kids, over the years, I think there needs to be more educational cards. The tactileness of the coins and that, I think that we could work more on that instead of moving the museum, because it is as big as it is, and it is where it is. I mean, I don't think that's something that's going to be moved anytime unless we go to the anchor in Chicago, and then maybe it could be anchored in Chicago. But in the meantime, I do feel that the children need to have those coins in their hands. We have a card at the Smithsonian up there, and I am totally amazed at the kids that come and just stand around that cart, feeling the coins, dealing with the money. That I think can be spread further out in some of these museums that we have all over the United States. Some areas I've gone into, the museums are not really showing coinage as much as it should be.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. I think at this point we need to. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
I got one more comment.
Okay.
And with all due respect, Don, I want us to talk about it. I don't know if it's possible. It may not be, but we're not 50 years too late on anything, because today is the first day. We have an opportunity, and when we should dig into digital and we should dig into all of that other stuff, but people still like to walk into a museum, and the data will prove that that is true. In Washington, D.C., people go there. It's a destination city. Millions and millions and millions of people go through. And I'm telling you that if you think that it wouldn't be good for us to be in that environment, it would be great for our hobby. It would educate people. It would encourage people to collect, and that's how we get better. And so I would say, as I did before, we got to talk about these things. We can't just wholesale discount them. We've got to talk about them and see if there are opportunities. I don't think it would cost as much as we think. I think we could find partners. I think we could find grants. I think we could, and maybe it doesn't work, but man, we have got to talk about it. We cannot go forward without challenging the status quo and look at what we can do.
Any other comments? Well, at this point, I think we need to move on to our closing statements. Candidates, we'll begin with Rob Oberth. Again, it's a 1-minute closing statement. So, Rob.
I would like your vote. I think that that we do need as much diversity on the board as we can get. Time, talent, and treasure are probably things that I'm willing to contribute, but we should also not neglect talent, people that are ready to roll up their sleeves and work hard, because the value that certain people can bring could be a lot more than any dollars that can be spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Paul Montgomery.
I have a passion for this work. I retired from professional numismatics 2 years ago, and I work in ministry now. But I've dropped my affiliation from every association, every professional association, and I've maintained this because I'm passionate about the hobby. I've been doing it since I was 6 years old, and I believe that God has wired me for such a time as this. We have a hobby that is really struggling. We're at one of those hinge moments in time that the decisions that we make now are the decisions that are going to affect people 50, 100, 200 years from now. And so I think there's probably never been a more important time to be about this association. And so to that extent, I'm going to continue to run. I hope someday to be president.
Thank you, Paul. Clifford Mishler.
Yeah, this community has been a lifetime love and a lifetime career where I'm concerned. I can't imagine that I could have chosen a greater pathway in life. And I think I gained some knowledge and insights that I hope to share with the ANA board and with the ANA membership going forward for its welfare and well-being from the long-term standpoint.
Thank you, Cliff. Greg Lyon.
During the time that I've served on the ANA board, I believe the ANA has become a stronger, more stable organization, that we're no longer dealing with tactical decisions, but we now have the opportunity to look at what can we do to improve the organization going forward and increase education both for our members and outside of the association membership as well. And I would appreciate your support in being able to serve for another 2 years.
Thank you, Greg. John Highfill.
I don't know how long I've been on the ANA, but my life number is 2655. I think it's around about 1980. Anyway, I've been a nonprofit outside of the ANA all my life, and I know how it works, and I'm very familiar with it. And I'm very busy. Don't get that by any means imagination everybody up here is. But to take your time and dedicate your time to do this with no pay or anything like that, you've got to be dedicated, and I am dedicated. I've been dedicated nonprofit for over 35, 37 years. So I appreciate your vote, and thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Mary Lynn.
I have just noticed over the last decade or so that the ANA has just done such a wonderful job since I've been able to be in hand to see what's going on. And I just hope that I can be here to help them to move forward with some great momentum.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Rick Ewing.
Well, I've been involved in the ANA more actively in the last, say, decade or so by participating up at the summer seminars and doing everything. And I seem to be getting more and more active, and I'm a very service-oriented person. And so I intend to use my service orientation to help and build better ANA. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Dr. Ralph W. Ross.
I'm happy to give everything I have available to the ANA, which means my means, motivation, and monitoring. I talked to my wife about retiring from the education department, teaching at the local community college, and she said, well, we've got a daughter now in med school. You want to retire? And I says, well, I don't know. I could teach another year, which means I can promote numismatics again. And now we're talking about adopting schools, and I think that's a good segue into working with the ANA and their new Adopt a School program. I need your vote. I need your support. I want to take a new leadership role as vice president with the American Numismatic Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Thomas J. Uram.
Thank you, Barb, and thanks for moderating and providing the platform here. I think it's been a great afternoon. When it comes to how I view being on a board, or if I'm already on a board, or if I'm being asked to be on a board, I say, can I do it, or do I want to do it? We can do a lot of things, but do you want to do it? And I do want to continue the mission of the ANA, the past, the future. I think I've brought in the last 2 years some creative ideas, promoted membership. I have a tremendous liaison now with the United States Mint that is hopefully going to foster some very positive things for all of us in the numismatic community. I respectfully ask for your consideration. I respectfully ask for your vote for Vice President. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Colonel Steve Ellsworth.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate everybody that's sitting up here right now and throwing your name and efforts and stuff into the hat to make the ANA a viable organization. It's a real commitment, and you're the best the hobby has, and I just think it's just wonderful you're all doing it. This is the first time we've had a contested contest or election in many, many, many years. All the seats are contested, which means that the membership will have a good opportunity to evaluate each of our ideas and so forth. But again, you guys have done a great job by willing to do this and take on this responsibility, because it is a lot of work and it's sometimes thankless. So anyway, I've worked real hard in the past, and I hope that I'm able to provide the leadership and the direction to carry us on into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Dr. Don Kagan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't sit silent when I hear somebody call the ANA a tired, worn-out association. We are far from that. We are the premier international numismatic educational organization in the world. We have a fabulous summer seminar program that's growing, as well as our educational outreach. We have an award-winning magazine that's wonderful, and everybody comments how wonderful it is. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a new website and communication with our membership recently. We spent a lot of money on infrastructure. We have spent a lot of money recently on cyber protection and other programs like that. And we have a state-of-the-art exhibit and money museum and traveling exhibits. Can we upgrade? Absolutely. Can we restructure to make it more exciting and relevant to today? Absolutely. But I guarantee you this, that this will never be a tired, worn-out association under my watch as president.
Well, thank you, Don, and thank you all. The ANA would like to thank everyone for participating in this candidate forum for the 2019 election of ANA officers. Complete candidate biographies and platforms will appear in the June issue of the Numismatist. All members entitled to vote under ANA bylaws will receive ballots in the mail unless they choose to cast their votes electronically. To learn more about electronic balloting, go to the ANA website at money.org, and the deadline for selecting this option is April 1. Thank you again for attending. Good night.
Okay.